Hey guys, Skellington80 here. So, today we are back for day 14 of 25 Days of Monsters. Thank you for joining me today. If you are returning from day 13 and have been watching all this time, thank you for coming back. And if you are new to this series, I welcome you and strongly suggest you read or you watch episode 1 because, well, there are so many interesting stories that we've covered, even though I'm bad at reading them because I constantly slip up and ramble, but today we give you the story of the Humbaba from the Epic of Gilgamesh, circa 1750 BC. Tim Seibert does it again with a brilliantly horrifying illustration of the beast. I mean, just look at that. Look at all those freaky teeth, the wild fur, the claws, the loincloth, and the fire spewing from his jaws. That's straight up. I'm not going to say the word because this is a kid-friendly channel, even though this is not a kid-friendly series, but that's just straight up wicked awesome. And without further ado, we begin. The category is demigod. The base of operations is Lebanon. When is 4,500 years ago. His powers are breathing fire, shape-shifting, and death breath. Most dastardly deed is Gilgamesh swears he's evil, but the Humbaba mostly just guards the forest, and the fear factor is 4. In the oldest days, Lebanon was most famous for its forests of massive cedar trees. The ancient Phoenicians used these trees to build their fleets, and King Solomon of Israel used the trees to build his temple. The Mesopotamian god Enlil, in order that the cedar wood would remain intact, created a guardian, a terror for the people, who guarded the cedars of Lebanon, Humbaba, whose roar is a flood, whose mouth is fire, and whose breath is death. His face was like a lion's, but covered in blood, so basically just like a lion's. And his mouth had sharp teeth and tusks sticking straight out. For eons, Humbaba kept watch over Lebanon's wild forests until one day Gilgamesh and Enkidu came along. Gilgamesh and Enkidu were a pair of buddy adventurers. Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, was 1/3 man and 2/3 god, which is a difficult combination to achieve. Enkidu was his best friend, a savage wild man whose whole body was covered with hair and had grown up in the wilderness where he ate herbs with the gazelles and quenched his thirst with the beasts. They were the 2 strongest men in the world, and when the gods sent the bull of heaven to toss them around and teach them a lesson, they just killed it. Now, perhaps they were looking to slay Humbaba, perhaps because Gilgamesh was a hero and heroes slay monsters, or perhaps just because Gilgamesh wanted some cedars to build a temple. Enkidu, who used to live in the forest and had seen Humbaba at a distance, counseled against this attack. This was Humbaba, the terrible one. He knew everything that happened in the forest, and he could hear even the slightest shifting of a leaf. Better not to enter the cedar forests and die. Better to stay in Uruk. But if people could talk Gilgamesh out of anything, he wouldn't have killed the bull of heaven. And this is a quote from Enkidu. Humbaba is as violent as the oncoming storm, and like the god of storms, he will destroy us. So that should have been a warning enough, and this story could have had a happy ending if they had just let the peaceful nature guardian be. But no, Gilgamesh is an idiot. He has to kill the forest guardian. Perhaps we have Gilgamesh to blame for the deforestation that's currently happening worldwide. Frick you, Gilgamesh. If you had just left the monstrous Lorax alone, we would not be in this mess. Okay, so they were heading for Humbaba's lair, and Enkidu was not about to just let him go alone. Together they ventured through the forest, and astonished they gazed at the height of the cedars and at the entrance of the cedar wood where Humbaba was wont to walk with lofty steps. And together they entered. 3 times over 3 nights, Gilgamesh dreamed strange and terrifying dreams of that forest. Enkidu interpreted them and told Gilgamesh that he would be fine, but Enkidu himself only grew more and more afraid. Then Humbaba showed up. His face was just as terrifying as Enkidu remembered it, but what was worse, as they watched his face, it changed into horrible visage after horrible visage, a catalogue of nightmares. In a voice like that of a storm cyclone, he spoke like a hot wind, vowing that he would kill the heroes and feed their corpses to the birds of his forest. Humbaba was fierce, but no one could stand before the combined might of Gilgamesh and Enkidu, not in the old Sumerian days. They battered Humbaba down, and when he begged for his life, Enkidu, who knew the guardian of the forest spoke in lies and tricks, told Gilgamesh not to listen. Just before Gilgamesh chopped his head off with his great axe, Humbaba uttered a curse. One day Enkidu would die, and Gilgamesh would be humbled by his grief. They chopped his head off anyway and dismembered him. Then they cut down his cedars to build things with. But Humbaba got his revenge. Not that Enkidu died right away. He and Gilgamesh had more adventures, but everything they seemed to do seemed to anger one god or another. Finally, they had enough and decided it was time for Humbaba's curse to strike home. One night, Enkidu dreamed he was dying, and when he woke up, he was. Gilgamesh wept for his friend, but then he realized something for the first time, that he would die too, someday. Instead of weeping for Enkidu, Gilgamesh started weeping for Gilgamesh. Some friend he is. Being a hero, Gilgamesh did not merely bemoan his fate. He decided to do something about it, and go in search for the secret of immortality, the quest that takes up the second half of the Epic of Gilgamesh. Alright, Valentine and Orson. The relationship between Gilgamesh and Enkidu, buddy heroes, one civilized and one savage, has an echo in the medieval legends of Charlemagne's knights. Two of Charlemagne's paladins were twins named Valentine and Orson. They were separated at birth. Valentine was raised by a king, while Orson was raised by bears. As adults, they met, teamed up, and fought evil knights and rampaging lions all across 8th century France. Alright, beyond the book. The oldest story in the world. The Epic of Gilgamesh isn't quite the oldest story in the world, but it's the oldest really good story in the world. At least the oldest one that survives to this day. It was a popular work for 1,000 years, appearing throughout the Middle East in different versions and different translations. And then it was forgotten. For 2,000 years, no one ever heard of Gilgamesh or Enkidu. But then the clay tablets that the epic was written on were preserved in the dry climate of Mesopotamia. In 1853, archaeologists turned up a fragment of the epic, and over time, more and more versions showed up, all of them fragmentary, but by comparing and combining them, we can read an almost complete version of the story. We're almost done here. Strange creatures of Mesopotamia. The ruined buildings of ancient Mesopotamia in the Middle East are filled with statues of strange creatures that looked like winged bulls with bearded human heads. Sometimes they have 5 legs, 3 in the front and 2 in the back. Called Lamasu or Shidu, these statues frequently flank gates and doorways. Other Mesopotamian monsters include Imdagud, Imdagud, a cross between a lion and an eagle, and the terrible retinue of the primordial dragon Tiamat, which includes the whirlwind, the ravening dog, the scorpion man, the mighty storm wind, the fish man, and the horned beast. As listed in E.A. Wallace's Budges, The Babylonians of Legends of Creation, and the Fight Between Bel and the Dragon, 1921. As we have heard before in the story of Apep, which was on day 1, in the Beyond the Books section, Wallace was kind of a bluffer and tended to pretend he was more fluent in ancient languages than he actually was, so if you read them, take them with a grain of salt, I suppose. And here we have a picture of I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but it looks a lot like a griffin, and I'm not sure which came first, but I'm guessing it was this one. But with that being said, we have reached the end of the video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz, and come back for day 15 if you want to. Although you have the full right to chicken out at any time, and I won't blame you. In fact, I won't even notice, likely. But, it's your decision, I suppose. See you tomorrow, hopefully. Bye.